Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Life on Purpose, an alternative approach to work-life challenges, presented by Ellen Ostrow. My name is Stephanie Phelan. I'm a marketing manager at MyCase, and I will be your host today. First, I'd like to give you a few tips about participating on GoToWebinar. The webinar control panel is on the right-hand side of your screen. This is where you can control audio, chat with me, and submit questions. Please use the questions pane to submit your questions at any time during the webinar. I'll be collecting those questions and saving them to ask Ellen at the end of her presentation, but please don't wait until the very end to shoot those over to me. Also, please note that these slides and the recording will be available by end of day tomorrow on the MyCase blog, and it will also be emailed to registrants. When you close your webinar today, a 4-question survey will pop up. All you have to do is answer those questions and you will be entered to win a $100 Apple gift card. If you'd like to join the conversation on Twitter, the hashtag to use is #LifeOnPurpose. This webinar has been approved by the Wyoming State Bar and the Florida Bar for 1 hour of general CLE credit. If you are a Florida Bar member, note course number 2194R to self-report your CLE. I will also send this information out in the GoToWebinar chat pane. Today's webinar is hosted by MyCase, so before we jump into things, I'd like to give you a quick overview. MyCase is a web-based law practice management software that takes care of your daily practice requirements for calendaring, contact management, document management and templates, time and billing, client communications, custom workflows, and more in one solution at an affordable price. MyCase is priced for solo and small firms at just $39 a month per attorney and $29 a month per paralegal or support staff. MyCase also offers websites for our customers. The cost to set up and build your website is only $500, and then there is a $50 per month maintenance fee. We use a modern, professional design built for your firm. The websites contain social media and blog integration. And best of all, a client portal which is completely integrated with your MyCase software. So now you and your customers can log into MyCase directly from your website. And now for a new feature. Approved MyCase customers can accept payments directly from client checking accounts, also known as e-check or ACH payments, for free with no third-party integration required. By linking MyCase's legal billing tools to your operating and trust accounts, you can seamlessly accept online payments into your MyCase account. We are also excited to announce that we are in the process of expanding payments to include a built credit card option. The service will be available to MyCase customers later in 2016. Last but not least, we enjoy hosting educational events for professionals in the legal industry, and that's why we're all here today. So let me tell you a little bit about our presenter. Ellen Ostrow has many initials after her name, including PhD. She is a strategic talent advisor, psychologist, certified coach, and founding principal of Lawyers Life Coach, LLC. Ellen started her firm in 1998 and has since coached many hundreds of attorneys throughout the world. Ellen's deep understanding of the complexities of human behavior derived from both her training in psychology and 30-plus years of experience working with individuals and organizations, combined with almost 20 years of working exclusively with attorneys, provides Ellen with a truly unique skill set. She knows the challenges attorneys face, grasps their personality styles, and comprehends their work environments. Today, Ellen will speak to the complexities of balance. Not only does her professional life give her perspective, but her personal life does too. Ellen is currently in sandwich mode, balancing work with the needs of her 87-year-old parents and her 26-year-old son. Ellen really gets it. I am pleased to welcome Ellen as our presenter today. Ellen, please go ahead and take it from here.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. I'm really delighted to be here. Welcome to all of you out there. I wish I could see you, but I'm going to start today with a poll question because work-life challenges are ever present in the profession, and I'm really interested in finding out how things are going for you. So the first poll question is, how satisfied are you with your work-life balance? You can select one of the following answers: very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, occasionally satisfied, or I never have work-life balance.
Okay, great. Curious on this one. So if everyone can please go ahead and submit your votes, I'm going to close the poll now. Okay, and the results are already in, Ellen. So how satisfied are you with your work-life balance? The smallest, or 18% said very satisfied, 45%, so our majority, say somewhat satisfied, 27% occasionally satisfied, and 10% said, I never have a work-life balance. So it seems like they've tuned into the right webinar.
Well, I'm sorry for the 10% of you who never have work-life balance, and I'm actually surprised because usually the percentage who are even somewhat satisfied is lower. So we have a relatively satisfied crowd. Hopefully by the end of the webinar, things will be even better. And I'm just, okay, here we go. So now that I've asked you a question about work-life balance, I'm actually going to debunk the concept of work-life balance. I think that the concept is really a myth. It's an anachronism. It comes from the Industrial Revolution concept of there being separate spheres of work and life. And it creates this, again, mythology that we really can get the scales of work and life somehow evenly balanced. The reality today is that there really are no boundaries between work and life. I mean, do you ever think about work when you're away from the office? Do you ever worry about your family while you're at work? Don't you take your smartphone with you everywhere? Not only that, but we're just one person, and work and the other parts of life are all different aspects of our lives. They're all different parts of our identity. So we can't really balance those things because they're not separate. At least for me, and maybe you'll resonate to this, my experience of work-life challenges is more like trying to spin all of those plates. You worry that if you take your eye off one, it's going to fall, and you really don't know where to direct your attention. You're just trying to keep the ball spinning. And a lot of us tend to spend too much time in our heads worrying about which plate or ball we've taken our eye off of. And that in and of itself is time and energy and attention consuming. So meet my consultant, Mr. Bobo Doll. This also may be an anachronistic image. When I was growing up, we actually had punching bags like that. And I love this Bobo Doll because it has taught me a lot about ways to think about work-life balance. The thing about a Bobo Doll is that you smack it and it bounces back. So the lesson of the Bobo Doll is the lesson in resilience, that thinking about balance really is much more helpful if you think about it in terms of resilience. The idea that no matter how much I get tipped over in one direction or another in one area of my life or another domain of my life, I can bounce back. And the research indicates that resilience is a core quality for success in all areas of life. So what else can we learn from the Bobo Doll? You can see from this picture that the way a Bobo Doll works is that it's grounded It's usually grounded by sand. So the question for all of us is, how can we ground ourselves like the Bobo Doll? What centers you like the sand at the base of the Bobo Doll? What will enable you to be so well rooted that no matter how far you tip in any direction, you'll find a way to bounce back? What can protect you from chronic overwork, burnout, the expectations of others, relentless billable hours demands, and all the anxiety that they elicit? I want to suggest to you that a sense of purpose can ground you in the way that the Bobo Doll is grounded. Having a sense of what you're trying to do in your life, in your career, your family, your community, your relationships, that grounds and centers you. From this sense of purpose and meaning, you can define goals, and it will also provide you with the energy to accomplish them. Your sense of meaning and purpose enables you to articulate your most important values and to make day-to-day and moment-to-moment decisions guided by them. Your sense of purpose can be anything from working for justice to bringing joy to others to being a caring person or bringing out the best in me. There are no right purposes. And the way you think about yours may change over the course of your life, although the general themes of what makes life meaningful for us tend to remain fairly constant for people. Research demonstrates that people who do anchor their lives in a meaningful sense of purpose report fewer mental health problems, and we know that those are pervasive in the profession. They're more engaged in their work, and they feel more in control of their lives. And control over our lives is particularly important because that's what it feels like to feel balanced. To the extent to which that balance exists, it's really a physiological state of optimal stress. When life feels out of control, stress gets too high, and we're physiologically out of balance, and we feel that way. The experience of trying to keep all those plates spinning and being afraid one of them is going to crash, and you'll never be able to pick up the pieces, feels pretty out of control. Do you find yourself having a hard time saying no? Do you sometimes wonder why you're driving so hard? Is it hard for you to prioritize your tasks? Do you ever feel like you have no time for yourself? Do you sometimes feel so depleted that nothing seems as important as getting some sleep? Do you ever feel badly about how little time you spend with your family or your friends or your community? If you have those experiences, it's likely that you're losing sight of what is meaningful to you. Essentially, what I'm suggesting to you is that knowing what matters most to you will enable you to be more resilient. Values are statements about what we want to be doing with our lives, about what we want to stand for, and how we behave on an ongoing basis. They clarify what gives our lives a sense of meaning or purpose. We can use our values as an ongoing guide for our actions. Our values guide us from within and motivate us to act. Our values are our deepest desires for the way we want to interact with the world, with other people, and with ourselves. They're what we want to stand for in our lives, how we want to behave, the kind of person we want to be. For example, Your values may include things like being honest, fair, and just, being an available and compassionate friend, being a loving and caring partner. Values are not the same things as goals. Goals are about things you want to get or accomplish. Being honest and fair isn't something that you accomplish and it's over. It's something you try to do on an ongoing basis. Values are action-based. They refer to the way you can behave on an ongoing basis. They're global qualities in that they unite many different patterns of action. So, for example, if you value the quality of fairness, you can be fair in many different ways. There are many actions that you can take in order to accomplish the quality of fairness. Your values come from you. They are not what other people tell you you should do or you should value. Most importantly, your values ground and center you. They enable you to be resilient and bounce back when you realize you've tipped too far in a particular direction. I think it's more helpful to talk about how to integrate work with the rest of life than it is to talk about how to balance things. Work is part of your life, and there are many other parts of your life. They're all parts of who you are as a person. In order to bounce back like that Bobo Doll, what we need to be able to do is to translate what matters most to us into the decision moments of daily life. So how exactly do you align your life with your values? This very complicated looking slide is a version of the values compass that was developed by the authors of the book, The Art and Science of Valuing. And it's a tool for aligning your life with your values. I'll guide you through it, but in order to personalize it and make it useful for you, you're going to need to print it out, and the slides will be available afterward, and work through it. So here's basically how it works. That circle in the center is you. From you, arrows emerge, and they aim at different life domains. Things like work, leisure, health, intimate relationships, spirituality. Each domain represents a valued area of your life. Your valued direction with regard to each domain has probably always been present throughout your life and will likely continue to be. But how it's expressed or the form it takes is likely to change during your life. For example, in the domain of family, being actively involved with and caring toward members of your family may well be a constant in your life, but which family members you are focused on are likely to change over the course of your life as your children grow up, as your parents age. And maybe these are not the labels that you would give the domains, the important domains of your life. So don't feel limited by what's written here. When you do this yourself, you decide which domains of life are important for you. For each domain, when you work this through, you'll reflect on and describe your valued direction in each domain. Just write a few words about what is important or meaningful to you in each domain of your life. What sort of person do you want to be, for example, in your work? What do you want to do? What kinds of strengths or qualities do you want to develop? What do you want to stand for as an attorney? The description should reflect a valued direction, not a goal you can achieve. It pertains only to your behavior, not the behavior of other people. So, for example, if I were to describe my intention with respect to the domain of health, it would include things like being respectful of the needs of my body and mind, engaging in regular exercise, making sure I get the medical care I need, eating a healthy diet, getting sufficient rest. These are the behaviors related to my value of self-care that transcend my age and life conditions. I always want to do this, but the way in which I do it is going to change as my life circumstances change and as I age. Next to each of these intention boxes, there are 3 boxes labeled importance, behavior, and difference. For each value direction in your compass, rate its importance in your life on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 means not at all important and 10 means of the greatest importance. Don't rank the different domains. Rate each one independently of the others. As you rate each one, ask yourself, in the best possible scenario, how important is it to me to have this quality in my life? Then rate how consistent your behavior over the past 2 weeks has been with your value direction. Again, use the same 0 to 10 scale. So a high rating would mean that in the past 2 weeks, you've invested substantially in creating and experiencing this quality. To continue with my example of health, I would rate its importance as a 10 because without my health, I can't really do anything else that I value. But in terms of behavior over the last 2 weeks, I'd probably have to give it a 4. I've not invested substantially in creating the quality I've listed in my intention. When you subtract your behavior rating from your importance rating, you get your discrepancy, which represents the degree to which you are living consistently with your value direction. Once you've done this for every domain that's relevant to you, take a look at what you've written. What does this tell you about what is important in your life and what you are currently neglecting? What does it tell you about where your Bobo Doll is tipped over and what you need to do to be more resilient? It's probably pretty obvious to you from looking at this compass that values will vie for your time and attention. There are only 24 hours in a day and many things in our lives that are important. The purpose of the values compass is not to help you behave in a way that's perfectly consistent with everything you value in every domain in your life every day. That would be impossible. Instead, it's intended to help you bounce back when you're neglecting a particular domain much more than you want to. The exercise helps you become aware of what you have not been attending to and also what might be getting in the way. In the next step in filling out the compass, you're going to look at those stars and consider what are the obstacles in your path? What stands between you here and now and actually taking steps in the value directions that you've decided are important to you? So there you're going to want to describe the main reasons you aren't acting in a manner fully consistent with your declared values. Typically, these reasons fall into one of 4 categories: worries, fears or self-criticisms, life-draining activities that make life worse in the long run, although they might help you deal with something in the short run, avoiding challenging situations or activities or people, or struggling to avoid uncomfortable emotions or sensations. For example, a client of mine was working 13-hour days, 7 days a week. She had suffered an injury but was neglecting her physical therapy exercises. She hadn't seen her boyfriend in weeks. She was eating fast food all the time. Her car died and needed to be fixed, and she was just letting it sit there. Clearly, she was tipped way over but wasn't bouncing back. What kept her stuck and out of alignment with her values was a lot of perfectionism, an intense fear of making any kind of mistake, as well as working to avoid the disapproval of partners if she told them that she simply could not take on any more work. This strategy was helping her avoid the discomfort of possible disapproval in the short run, but wasn't really working for her in the other domains of her life, in either the short or the long term. And I doubt this strategy would work very well for her, even in terms of her values in the work domain. Our minds are a constant source of chatter. They just go on blah, 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 blahing. Our minds are excellent at coming up with reasons why we can't do what we value. Things like, I might fail. Our minds are very good at coming up with judgments. Things like, well, I should be able to get all this work done if I were only stronger or tougher. We're great at worrying about the future, imagining catastrophic outcomes if we align our behavior with our values. And our minds are wonderful at coming up with rigid rules about work and life. Rules like, if I can't do everything perfectly, I shouldn't be in practice. Or if I miss coming home for dinner more than 2 nights a week, I'm a bad mother. Human beings tend to treat the contents of their minds as truth with a capital T. It's as if we think it, it must be true. In reality, our minds have evolved to think negatively. When we were cave people living out on the savannah, we lived in a world of constant danger. In order for our species to survive, we had to be on the lookout for danger, anticipating anything that could harm or kill us. If you were a caveman and didn't do this, it's likely that you'd die, and along with that, so would your genes. We have inherited from our ancestors a watch out for danger machine, which is our minds. Our modern mind is still trying to warn us of everything that could possibly go wrong. This is absolutely normal. People tend to think they're the only ones whose minds say these things to themselves, but everyone's mind does this. It's simply our mind trying to do its principal job, which is to protect us and keep us alive. So here's the next poll question.
Okay, great. Go ahead and read it. Yeah, thanks.
The chatter in my mind includes, and you can select more than one of those.
Okay, great. If everyone can please go ahead and place your vote there. Could be worries that I'll lose a client, fears of making a mistake, thoughts that I should be exercising more, or feeling guilty about neglecting my family. And it looks like the majority has voted, so I will close the polls and share our results. Okay, so 26% say that they worry they're going to lose a client. 81%, so definitely the majority, say fear of making a mistake. 72% thoughts that I should be exercising more, and 51% feeling guilty about neglecting my family.
And boy, is that normal. Fears of making a mistake are so pervasive in the profession, certainly not exclusive to the profession. And if your Bobo Doll is tipped way over in the work direction because you're afraid of making a mistake, and you're spending so much time trying not to make a mistake or being worried about making a mistake, then probably you're not exercising, but you're noticing that you're not exercising and thinking that you should be exercising more. So what's the antidote to this? How can you align your life with your values and bounce back like that Bobo Doll in the face of all this mind chatter? You've probably heard of the concept of mindfulness. It's become quite popular in several top law schools. If you think it's too touchy-feely, let me first refer you to the volumes of research on the effectiveness of mindfulness. I also want to point out to you that you don't have to become a Buddhist or meditate every day in order to be mindful. Mindfulness is simply focused attention in the moment with openness, curiosity, and acceptance. It's really a very, very simple concept. Typically, in mindfulness meditation, you're simply focusing your attention on your breath and noticing with curiosity, openness, and acceptance the thoughts that come into your mind, and simply letting those go and refocusing your attention on your breath. When we are mindful, we are in contact with the present, right here, right now, and fully conscious of our experience rather than lost in our thoughts, lost in all that chatter. What this allows us to do is to accurately perceive what is happening, to gather important information, and to make intentional choices about whether to persist in what we're doing or to do something else. We spend so much time on automatic pilot, and automaticity presents the greatest threat to resilience in that Bobo Doll of ours. When we're on automatic pilot, we tend to keep doing what we're doing, what we've always done, lost in the chatter of our minds, filled with scary thoughts about all the terrible things that would happen if we did anything else, like exercised, like decided the work product was good enough and it was time to move on to something else. The values compass that we went through before is an example of an exercise that disrupts this automaticity. Resilience, acting with meaning and purpose and alignment with our values, requires mindful awareness of what we are doing, whether it's working, and it brings us, and whether what we're doing is bringing us closer to or further away from what we value. And it enables us to make intentional choices about how to spend the limited time that we have. To know whether or not we are living by our values, we need to be aware of what we're doing and noticing the consequences of our actions. Mindfulness or present awareness enables us to notice the difference between the chatter in our minds and what is happening right here, right now. It helps us to unhook from those thoughts that are really not working. The past and the present only exist as thoughts that we're having in the present. We can plan for the present if we make a plan, but we're going to be making that plan in the present. Mindfulness allows us to notice and unhook from unhelpful thoughts. You can notice your thoughts and notice that they are just that, just thoughts, not truths. Just your mind doing its analyzing, judging, debating, predicting disaster thing. The idea is to notice your thoughts so that they don't control you, and to notice your feelings so that they don't consume you. Sure, you might be worried about a client's expectations. You might be worried about making a mistake. You might be anxious about a supervisor's judgment. But if your strategy for dealing with this is to work endlessly and try to achieve perfection while neglecting everything else in your life, it's time to ask yourself Dr. Phil's famous question, how's that working for you? Workability, not truth, is the measure of everything. Probably those thoughts and feelings are not helping you focus on your project efficiently and effectively. If you mindfully become aware of them, you can notice them with curiosity and acceptance and simply refocus your attention on the work you're doing. Or notice that you're hungry and you need to eat and go get something to eat. Or notice that you're exhausted and you need to get some sleep. Uncomfortable feelings are simply a part of life. There's really no way to make value-based decisions without disappointing someone, and that usually doesn't feel good. As with that Eleanor Roosevelt quote in the earlier slide, someone is bound to criticize you anyway, and none of us like that feeling. But trying not to feel these natural feelings usually backfires. Try to talk to yourself out of feeling a feeling and see how well that works. Substances like alcohol may dampen the feeling for a while, but those feelings come back, and often with other negative consequences. What's the alternative? Noticing your feelings and accepting them with curiosity. I'll tell you a story about myself. I have been traveling to speak for many years, and for whatever reason, every time I get on that plane, I feel a certain amount of anxiety. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm wired to get anxious in the presence of novelty. In fact, as I think about it, we're all wired that way. So after a while of trying to get rid of my anxiety, why do I need to be anxious? I've done this before. I realized I can't talk myself out of it. And the alternative was to simply learn to live with that feeling. So whenever I book my ticket, I always feel like I have to book a ticket for me and the seat next to me for my anxiety, because I know it's going to come with me wherever I go. That's just the way it is. I have to welcome it and accept it. What I'm talking about is something that researchers in psychology call psychological flexibility. It's the ability to adapt to the demands of the situation right here, right now, to figure out what will work right here, right now, to maintain a kind of balance between domains of life that really do compete with each other, to tolerate distress, and to develop an open, receptive attitude toward our emotions, thoughts, and sensations, and to be aware of and committed to actions that are congruent with our most deeply held values. This is the basis for resilience, the basis of being able to make value-based choices in order to balance competing life domains and to tolerate the inevitable distress that this creates. It should be clear by now that work-life integration and resilience are impossible without taking time to stop and become aware of what you are doing and how you are feeling. It helps to create reflection rituals. Again, there's no one right way to do this. You certainly could start practicing mindfulness. There are some terrific apps that can help with this. You want to try to create rituals that allow you to notice whether your Bobo Doll is tipped all the way in any particular direction. Rituals that allow you to notice how stressed you are. Rituals that give you an opportunity to assess how far your behavior has strayed from your values. What domains of your life you might be neglecting. Rituals that enable you to notice if you've gotten hooked by judgments or criticisms or worries. Essentially, these rituals are ways of giving yourself more control. You don't want your thoughts and fears and rigid rules or other people controlling you. You want to feel in control, to be making intentional choices. This values bullseye, developed by Dr. Russ Harris, is an easy ritual to help you become aware of how aligned your behavior is with your values. You just stop and consider the important domains of your life. If your behavior is consistent with your values in recent times, you mark that in the bullseye. The further away your behavior has been from your values, the further out on the target you mark it. If you're interested in learning more about this, just email me and I'll send you the instructions for using it. I've been conducting a women lawyers leadership coaching group for many years, and many of the members find it very useful to complete this regularly. It helps them bounce back and realign their values and their actions. Stopping to notice your stress level is a very important tool. When your stress is too high, you're really unable to think about what you value, and you're vulnerable to acting in ways that you will later regret. Some of my leadership coaching clients have drawn a thermometer with red, yellow, and green sections. It sits on their desk so that they are staying aware of their increasing stress and stopping to take action to lower their stress level. This has immediate positive effects on stress, helps the Bobo Doll bounce back, and enables intentional decision-making about where to focus your attention and energy. This coaching tool can be very helpful in maintaining resilience. For example, suppose you're offered an exciting stretch assignment that will entail a lot of extra work. If you say yes to it, you're saying yes to growing your skills, increasing your visibility, and connecting with others in your organization with whom you don't typically have the opportunity to work. Saying yes to this will also mean that you're saying no to a planned vacation with your family. There are always trade-offs and no right answers. What's important is to be making an intentional, mindful choice based on what matters most to you. And whatever you choose, there are likely to be some difficult feelings that you'll need to notice and accept. Here's the third poll slide. My workplace recognizes and supports my life outside of work, tolerates but disapproves of my life outside of work, does not acknowledge the legitimacy of life outside of work, or is an environment of chronic overwork.
Okay, excellent. If everyone can please go ahead and place your vote. I will be closing any moment, and I'll just take this moment too to say if you have any questions, send that over in the questions pane in the next few minutes. Okay, it looks like majority has voted. I'll close the polls. Share our results. Okay, 69% say that their workplace recognizes and supports my life outside of work. That is excellent. 13% say tolerates but disapproves of my life outside of work. 6% does not acknowledge the legitimacy of life outside of work, and 11% say it is a chronic overwork environment. Are you impressed by the 69% there, Ellen?
I'm very impressed by the 69%. You must be working in organizations different from the ones I usually consult with. For those 30% of you, it's pretty hard to face the challenge. There are a lot of uncomfortable reactions that you're going to have to deal with when you try to set boundaries. But you know, it's pretty important to work in a place that has values that are aligned with your own, and it sounds like almost 70% of you do, and that's a huge change in the way things have typically been. Why should any of this matter to your organizations? Overwork is expensive. Burned out attorneys are expensive to replace. As you can see from this slide, there's an optimal amount of stress for effective performance, but after that, we become decreasingly productive or effective. Overstressed attorneys simply cannot work efficiently. They tend to make more errors. The harder you work to try to not make mistakes, the more likely you are to make mistakes. Sleep-deprived attorneys are cognitively impaired. By some estimates, every hour of sleep decrement has the equivalent effect on your brain of 1 ounce of alcohol. Just think about that. Attorneys who feel out of control of their lives either burn out or they leave. Clients don't benefit from any of this. The health and attrition costs to organizations are huge. Disengaged attorneys create a huge cost to their organizations. There's plenty of research on this. Legal workplaces need to notice, and millennial attorneys seem to be making their voices heard about this. In fact, the values and the emphasis on work-life balance of the millennials coming into legal workplaces has the potential to finally produce significant change. Maybe that 70% of you are working in organizations that have heard those voices and are trying to do something about it. Even if you work in an environment of chronic overwork, don't give up on your career. Remember what matters to you about your work, what is meaningful to you, to your sense of purpose, and what you're trying to accomplish. There are ways to be a successful attorney without sacrificing the other things in your life that are meaningful to you, that make life worth living. Any questions?
Okay, great. I have questions flooding in right now. But before we get to that, thank you so much, Ellen. Those were some really interesting and comforting tips. For those of you who have to leave us now, please take note of 3 things. When you close your webinar, a 4-question survey will pop up. All it takes is answering these questions and you will be entered to win the $100 Apple gift card, so it's definitely worth it. If you are a Florida Bar member, note CLE course number 2194R to self-report your CLE. Also, you will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the blog where you will find these slides, the webinar recording, and the Apple gift card winner. A lot of people asked about those slides. Ellen, they loved your slides, so people do be aware that we'll have PDF slides available, and you'll get that link tomorrow. Okay, so now on to these questions. What sorts of materials or books do you suggest for a beginner's approach to mindfulness? Where can one learn more about that exercise?
Oh, there are so many things out there. Probably if you were to Google mindfulness, you would find more options than you can imagine. I highly recommend a particular app that you can download called Headspace. It explains mindfulness and will guide you through exercises to practice mindfulness. There's a wonderful book, and I'm not remembering the title of it, but if you Google mindfulness or you go onto Amazon, you'll find this book, and it's a great introduction. It's actually written by the person who teaches mindfulness at Google. A lot of the Silicon Valley companies actually teach their employees about mindfulness. And this particular book is a wonderful introduction. It really explains how it works. It gives you simple exercises. Since he is a trainer, it's written in very accessible language. So I'd start with those 2 things.
Okay, great tips. Thank you. Okay, can you comment for those who are self-employed and have work that allows their personal life, but may at the same time be at a feel like they're at a place of chronic overwork?
Yeah, it's solo practice can be very demanding, and it requires a lot of in-the-moment decision-making. It's very easy to have your anxiety about growing the practice, maintaining the practice, govern your decisions, and that's what you don't want. You want to be mindfully aware with each case that you take on, whether this particular case is consistent with what you're trying to accomplish in your practice. You want to be very mindful of how you're managing your relationships with your clients and giving them reasonable expectations that allow you to take care of yourself and the other parts of your life. It's very easy to fall into the trap of having your worry about cash flow make you take on work you don't really want to take on, make promises that you really don't want to make, and find yourself completely overwhelmed and overloaded doing work that you don't even really want to do. So it may seem impossible, but being much more intentional and being aware of that anxiety and kind of holding it lightly and knowing that it's there, but thinking about what is it that I'm trying to accomplish in all the areas of my life, that can help you.
Okay, great answer. Thank you. The next question I found very interesting. If law firms know the business case for more work-life integration, why are they not being proactive about it? And why are firms so far behind?
What a great question. I ask myself that all the time. You know, I think in large part, firms are run by people who grew up with different values and have practiced those values for a long time and sacrificed much of the rest of their lives in order to make their practices successful. And they're really confused by the values of the younger lawyers coming in. The other part of it is that the way they do their metrics doesn't really take into account the business costs of overwork, of chronic overwork. So the data is all there, but it's not in their spreadsheets. And unless they're actually measuring it, they're not paying attention to it. It's not compelling for them. It's just theoretical. So I think those are the two primary reasons that you're seeing so much resistance.
Very well said. Thank you. Okay, we have time for just a few more questions. It's not too common in the legal work currently, but working at home, how does that affect stress and balance, etc.?
Well, like anything else, it depends a lot on how you are working at home. You have to decide what kinds of boundaries work best for you working at home. You know, interruptions have a profound effect on our cognitive efficiency. When you're interrupted, it takes you 4 times longer to get something done because your mind has to focus on whatever's interrupting you and then refocus on what it is you were trying to do before. And of course, because we're wired, it's possible to be interrupted as much at home as it is at the office. And also our families can interrupt us. So you really have all the same decisions to make about what kinds of boundaries you're trying to set, what kinds of breaks you need so that you can restore your energy, what you're going to allow to distract you, how often you're going to check your email, what calls you're going to take. I think fundamentally working at home has the potential to be highly stressful and has the potential to be to really help you manage your stress. It's all about planning and prioritizing.
Okay, great. It's amazing how many questions are coming in, so thank you to the audience for sending these. We may not get to them all, but we will do our best.
And if people want to email me questions afterwards, I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay, great. How do you turn your mind off at night and avoid those dreaded work dreams? I think everyone might know what we're talking about. What we're talking about there.
Well, you know, I don't think you can control your dreams. There are several things that you can do. David Allen talks a lot about closing the loop. You know, if you can, if something is bothering you at night, something that you forgot to do, it helps to just put it in your calendar so that you have a plan for completing it, and then that tends to get it off your mind. If you're talking about kind of the catastrophic thinking thoughts, then practicing mindfulness can be incredibly helpful. Learning to get some space between you and your thoughts, you and your worries, so that you know that they're there, but you know that that's just your mind doing what it's wired to do, but not really being your friend right now. That can help a lot with sleep. And in fact, there are particular apps that apply mindfulness to falling asleep and staying asleep. I think one of them is called I Sleep Easy.
Okay, great. Yes, I've heard of that app. Haven't tried it, but I think I might do that. Okay, next question, Ellen. How should contract attorneys use mindfulness to understand the precarious limbo they're in between being unemployed and not being in a good paying full-time job?
It is very hard to be a contract attorney. It's very hard not to have job security. It's also true, if you pay attention to the legal press, that really nobody has job security. You can be a full-time permanent associate and find yourself laid off. So worrying about the security of your job is something that doesn't really work well, and in fact is going to impair your effectiveness. So the more focused you are on what you are doing, the more effective you're going to be, and the more likely you are to continue to work for that whatever contract agency you're working for, because you're going to get good reports and good feedback. The other thing you probably want to be doing is, unless you want to be a contract attorney, one of the things you want to be working on is looking for more stable employment. And so you want to make sure that you are prioritizing making time for that.
Okay, great. I just wanted to share, several people didn't send questions, but they sent books, since we were talking about books of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll share a few of those sent by the audience. One was Search Inside Yourself by
That's the book I was talking about.
Oh, perfect. I'm probably going to butcher the name, but Chade Mentan. So that was one. And then there's Eckhart Tolle, of course, The Power of Now. And then another one, Turning the Mind into an Ally.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard of that one? Okay.
Yes, I have.
Okay, great. And then an app suggestion was a great mindful meditation app that addresses sleep, anxiety, creating calm, focus, concentration, etc. It's called calm.com.
Mm-hmm.
Calm.com. So C-A-L-M.
There's another one called Buddhify.
Okay, great. And a few other ones here. Real Happiness by Sharon Salzberg.
Is excellent.
Okay, great. And it's amazing how many books people have read on the subject. The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. Nepo is a great book of thoughts and intentions. And that was it for the suggestions. Okay, and then I think we are out of time for questions, so I am going to go ahead and wrap the webinar. Ellen, thank you so very much for being with us today. It was really an insightful webinar, and thank you to everyone who attended. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.